Good evening, welcome to this video. Today we have a premium review on the Nb.Fz. It's not obviously how you pronounce it in German, but I'm not German, so unfortunately you just have to deal with that. So this tank is extremely expensive for a rank 1 vehicle, coming in at 1,750 golden eagles. Now, for obvious reasons, it is not worth it at full price. And that probably won't come as much of a shock. But if you can get a 50 or even a 75% off, like I did, I got this 75% off after a match I had, absolutely get this thing. This thing is actually really fun. I wasn't expecting it to be, but my god is this thing fun. With good reaction times and the fact that the turret's faster than it used to be, this thing is actually surprisingly fun, I must say. So let's go over the tank, and we can of course cover all the little bits and bobs that this thing has, and of course we can talk about the elephant in the room that is the tank itself in terms of size. So we'll start out with the armor, which is unfortunately not this tank's strong suit, but you should expect this by now. 16mm on the lower glacis, 20 on most of the upper areas. We have 15 and 14 up on the turrets, which are relevant. Not great from the front, let's be real. Now, I've started angling to this side because the machine gun port can sometimes eat a shot, and obviously the extra tracks and stuff like that can also help eat shots and things like that. Obviously, you are still vulnerable to APHE from this angle, and you're also vulnerable to APHE to the turret, but given how large this thing is, it's actually quite a benefit because you can just use this machine gun port as a little bit of armor. If they shoot it, doesn't matter because you only lose one crew member most of the time. And yeah, this is quite usable. I don't recommend angling to this side because your gunner sits directly behind the driver. So don't angle to the driver's side, angle to the machine gun port side. It won't always save you, but it's something to consider. So as I was mentioning, the turret is also rather weakly armored. The hull is mostly 13mm, which is extremely low. We of course have another machine gun port back here, or turret I should say, which is also 14 to 15mm thick and then 13 around the sides. This tank is very vulnerable to 50 cal fire and light 20mm fire from range. So, as I say, try and angle with the machine gun ports facing them. Even if you've got an enemy behind you, try and give them this machine gun port whilst giving them the front of the turret. It's better to give them that than either a side profile or a complete rear profile where they can just shove it in the turret ring. Overall though, the armor is not why you would play this thing. If you've looked at the turret, you'll notice this tank is rather unique. This tank has two guns slammed into the turret, but we'll cover those in a brief second, because I have a bit of a bone to pick with these machine guns. These are the 7.92 MG13 Dre's machine guns. Now, it's not the first time I've covered this machine gun on the channel. It was the Chinese 222 that really brought this up. But this just doesn't feel right, and it doesn't sit with me. That's why I'm bringing it up. The machine gun turrets are extremely, they're pretty okay in terms of speed, but they don't feel like they're 14 degrees a second. They actually feel slower than that. And the machine guns themselves aren't the best fire rate wise, and they're also carrying the same machine gun sound profile as the Browning 30 count. I don't know why. But going back to the turret, we obviously have a coaxial MG13. We then, of course, have the main gun that you're going to be using, the 75mm KWK-37, with 80 shots, decent reload rate, and just overall a decent package to have in the turret on its own at this sort of BR, with 10 degrees of gun depression, 22 degrees vertical elevation, and pretty decent shells to boot. This is nice to have, and if you're playing in low-tier Germany, this is a good gun to have. But then you have this little guy backing it up, the 37mm KWK-36. Now, this is a cannon that doesn't get a lot of love from the player base. In some cases, that is to be expected, but this gun actually helps out quite a bit, especially given all of the light vehicles running around. Now, normally I would say carry HE, but you have heat in this gun, so you don't need it. The 37 doesn't get HE, so you don't need it, and plus even if it did, you have the heat. Mainly you want to be firing the APHE round out of this cannon. With the 75, you want to be firing the heat most of the time, because then you're overpressuring light vehicles, and you're also just penning anything anyway, so why the hell not? But of course, the 37 does come with an APCR round. Overall, though, the survivability is okay. I mean, 6 crew members, but obviously considering how lightly armoured the vehicle is, it's not too bad. And, well, it could be better. And of course, the mobility, with it being nearly 23.5 ton and powered by a 290 horsepower engine, it's not too bad in the mobility department, but it could be better. It tops out at 19 miles an hour. Don't believe the max speed there. It does 19 miles an hour quite comfortably. The reverse rate is unfortunately really slow at 2.4 miles per hour. So if you're getting hit and you want to reverse out, don't expect it to be quick. That's all I'll say. But overall, the armor, the mobility, and the guns are actually pretty solid. And if we take a look at the shells, you've got heat, you've got the AP if you want to use that. I mean, you can use this, but I just prefer having the heat. You can also bring a few smoke, and then of course the APCR round, as I mentioned, is on this 37mm. But the main star of the show is the APHE, because the APHE normally can one-shot quite a few vehicles. And then of course the machine guns pretty much come with AP belts throughout, so you can kill very light vehicles. And if the machine guns aren't doing the job because of their low fire rate, you have the 75 to mess their day up. So even though this thing may seem bad on paper if you look at the raw statistics, this thing is actually quite a lot of fun. And the replay I'm about to show you definitely shows that. Because unfortunately I would have recorded this live, but it didn't record properly. So I'm having to do it via a replay. But I hope you enjoyed seeing the replay, which we're going to jump to now, and I'll see you in a moment. And welcome to the match. I've jumped us ahead about a minute or so just to get us into the battlefield a little bit. And from here on, I'm just going to let the replay play out as normal, because this match is to be behold, let's put it that way. So, as I mentioned, the mobility, whilst it isn't as good as something like a Stuart there, for how big this thing is, it actually does pretty well. Like, it's very smooth in its driving ability. And I'll be honest, I'm actually quite impressed with the mobility, like, for how big it is. So at this moment, I'm just dropping some artillery, and I saw the BT-5 out the corner of my eye, but obviously I don't have a shot. So I let my squad mates, I let them know. I've got Forsaken Shadow on my team, and I've also got Hairy Feet on my team. And we're just going to try and make our way towards the A point. The enemy team's already beaten us there, but I'm obviously not the most heavily armoured tank, but you'll notice I'm angling towards the machine gun port side. But obviously, we're about to see a crap ton of smoke in a minute. Now, the replay doesn't show it, but there's actually a large amount of black smoke just over... Here it is. There was more before that. So, before that, before the replay actually showed the artillery strike, there was another one just before that, and that made it so we had difficulty seeing. But the BT-5 there just drove out in front of me. He got hit by the Panzer III and attempted to return fire, but was too late as I'd already pulled out and taken a shot. So that's kill number 1. Now, one thing I will say about driving this tank is that you do have a big fat target on your head because of how big it is. But also because Russian rocket planes, like the I-15, have a very easy time killing this thing, so just be mindful of that. Smaller bombs will do a lot more damage than you think near your tank, and will likely kill you due to the shockwave and obviously the explosive mass and everything. Because the side armor is only 13mm, but obviously around the mud guards and everything is 13 extra, so you get an extra bit of spaced armor, which is helpful, but still. So here comes a rocket, which luckily it actually hits the machine gun on the front turret, so it does jack all. Extremely lucky there. That would have killed me if not so. This is where I'm taking 50 cal fire from a M8 Greyhound. But I'm not sure why he didn't fire his 37, but then he takes out my gunner, the A13 takes out my loader and commander, and I'm able to get the gunner back in the vehicle and put a shot with APHE right through. Pretty simple because, as I say, the 13mm of, well, the 37mm penetration, I should say, is more than sufficient to take out a British A13. And this is where my pants went brown. I'm just going to pause it here to really put into perspective, like, what's coming over that ridge. So we've got 3 A13s, a BT7, and I believe a T26-4 is just behind that A13 on the right-hand side there. And I'm all that standing in their way. So luckily, Hans is on his A-game today. Let's put it that way. Now, my aim was not on my A-game, but there's the T26. There goes him, and there goes him. We're up to 5 kills now. And of course, I know that they're going to try and push here, so Shadow comes in to mark him up, but being Shadow, he doesn't know how to fly the straight line. Although he claims he lost his pilot. I disagree, but we'll gloss over that. A13 gets taken out. My heat round doesn't do anything, but luckily my teammate takes it out and I get a kill assist. This is where I decide to get a bit brave with just 3 crew members left and I start pushing. Now luckily the T26 isn't paying too much attention and I take him out with just the 37mm, and as you can see, with just 22.4 grams of TNT, it has an impressive amount of post-pen. Overpressure there takes out the M8, although I'm fairly certain the heat round would have taken him out anyway. But, you know, it's something to still consider. So at this moment, I'm made aware of a BT7 behind me, so I start reversing. And here you can see just how slow the reverse rate is. It's not impressive, and it does cost a teammate his life, but luckily the Nb.Fz is about to remember its teammate in honor, because apparently a BT7 could just eat a heat round, no problem, but it can't eat a 37mm AP round. And at this moment, a Sark decides to join the party, and is about to shoot my teammate, but because of how shit that piece of crap is, he can't even get his gun firing in time. And, well, heat rounds to an armoured car at this BR are quite simple. That's number 9. This is where, let's just say, I'm sort of glad I had more than my fair share of caffeine yesterday, which is when this match took place. And, yeah, this is sort of where my heart rate is skyrocketing at this point, because it would be, like in most people's situation. But I'm obviously using the good mobility of the tank to get around the match, and I'm going to take a little shortcut to near their spawn, because, well, our team is pushing their spawn. I take a near miss from a Chiha there, which probably would have disabled the engine, and that's when I start trying to flank. I thought I was going to have a shot on the Chiha, so I stopped there. The TBD you can see there, and it is a BTD. He's provided some good close air support, and he takes out the Chiha. He's been providing good cast for the last few minutes, so fair credit to him. And this is where I start my real push, and this is where the match is going to get even crazier than what it did earlier. Because there's more tanks for me to shoot at. So there's a BT5. I decided to take him out with just the 37, and you can see there just how good the post pen is on this gun. Now, you'll notice 15 APCR down there. I've actually reduced that to 5 and brought more APHE in the tank. It's actually surprisingly fun. Gun mantlet takes that one. There goes the A13. Heat round doesn't, unfortunately, take out the BT5, but I take out the driver and damage the fuel tank. Heat round takes out the Chiha there. I start machine gunning the truck because I think it's going to be out of spawn protection very soon. He starts driving. Machine gun cleans him up. I then turn back to the BT5, he takes another heat round and another 37mm. T26 shows up, I give him a double barrel, and BT5 attempts to turn his gun onto me and eats a 37 for his efforts. Another 37 into the T26. Yeah, this match was disgusting. I'm not going to deny that. But when we have the cap, we have the advantage. We literally have nothing else to do. Yeah, we're going to push. And we're going to push hard. Especially when I've got air support. And there we go. That's kill number 19, or 17, sorry. I nearly said 19 because that's actually breaking a record. This match was, I believe, 1 off of... No, 19 was my record. This was only 2 kills off of breaking my record in Ground RB, and this was my 4th match in the tank. If that doesn't tell you how fun this thing can be when you've got good reaction times and decent survivability, what more can I say? I wouldn't obviously recommend picking up this tank on 50% off, because that's a bit too expensive. This tank does come up in war bonds, but if you're lucky and you get a 75% off like me, 100% pick this thing up. But anyway, I'm going to leave you all to it for today. Really hope you enjoyed seeing the Nb.Fz in action. Obviously, Bertie's probably going to moan at me for the way I pronounce that, but, you know, I'm not German, so I'm just going to say it how I would say it. But anyway, I hope to see you all on the next one.